Listen, I don't care if you think having a 401k means you're all set for retirement. I care about one thing, whether you'll be forced to go back to work at 70 because you ran out of money. And right now, if you're over 50 and you're making any of these 5 catastrophic 401k mistakes, you're going to wake up at retirement age and discover that despite having saved for decades, you don't have enough money to live on. You'll be cutting back on medications, canceling travel plans, maybe even selling your house just to survive. I'm Grace Park, and I've watched countless people go from millionaires on paper to broke retirees because of completely avoidable 401k mistakes. These weren't stupid people. These weren't reckless gamblers. These were hardworking, responsible people who thought they were doing everything right. They contributed to their 401k every paycheck. They watched their balance grow to 6 figures, sometimes 7 figures. They felt secure. And then a few critical errors destroyed it all. Today I'm going to expose 5 massive 401k retirement mistakes that even people with substantial account balances are making right now. And here's what makes these mistakes so deadly. Your employer won't tell you about them. Your 401k plan administrator won't warn you. Your HR department certainly won't help you avoid them, because these companies and administrators profit when you make mistakes. They collect fees whether you retire comfortably or broke. They don't care. If you're over 50, you have a 401k, and you don't want to be broke in your 70s, smash that subscribe button right now. This channel exists to expose the retirement traps that nobody else has the guts to talk about. Let me establish my credentials here. Over 40 years, I've seen people build enormous wealth, and I've seen people lose everything. I've personally witnessed dozens of cases where someone at 55 had $800,000 or $1 million in their 401k, looking completely set for retirement, and then through a series of terrible mistakes, they hit 70 with half that amount or less. And at 70, there's no recovery. You can't go back to work. You can't rebuild. You're stuck living with the consequences of mistakes you made 15 years earlier. What I'm about to tell you is going to make HR departments, 401k providers, and a lot of financial advisors very uncomfortable. Because the truth is that the entire 401k system is designed in a way that makes it easy for you to make expensive mistakes. The companies administering these plans profit from high fees. They profit from your confusion. They profit when you make poor investment choices or take early withdrawals. Your financial success in retirement is not their priority. Their fees are their priority. Here's the fundamental truth about 401k mistakes that people over 50 need to understand. When you're 30 and you screw up your 401k, you have time to recover. You can increase contributions. You can wait for the market to bounce back. You can course correct. But when you're 55 or 60, every mistake is potentially permanent. Early withdrawal penalties, lost compound growth, market downturns right before retirement, all of these can permanently destroy your retirement plan. You don't get do-overs at this age. Let me give you some statistics that should terrify you. The average American has less than $200,000 in their 401k when they retire. That's not enough to maintain even a modest standard of living for 20 or 30 years. But here's what's even scarier. Many people with much larger balances, people with $500,000 or even $1 million, still end up broke because they make one or more of these 5 critical mistakes. Having money in your 401k doesn't guarantee a comfortable retirement. You have to avoid destroying that money through terrible decisions. The retirement industry sells you this fantasy that contributing to a 401k is all you need to do. Just set it and forget it. Just keep putting money in every paycheck and you'll be fine. But that's a lie. How you manage your 401k, what funds you choose, when you take distributions, how you handle job changes, all of these decisions matter enormously. and most people are getting them catastrophically wrong. Now let me walk you through these 5 massive 401k mistakes that are destroying retirements right now. For each mistake, I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like, how people justify it to themselves, what the hidden destruction is, and why it's particularly deadly for people over 50. The first mistake, and this one is absolutely inexcusable, is not maximizing your employer match contribution. This is the most common and most expensive mistake I see, and it blows my mind because it's literally free money that people are refusing to take. Here's how people justify this mistake. They say, I'm contributing something to my 401k, maybe 3 or 4% of my salary, so I'm saving for retirement. Or they say I need the cash now, I'll increase contributions later. Or they say the company matches just a small bonus, it's not that important. Every single one of these justifications is financial suicide. Here's the reality. When your employer offers a match, they're offering you a 100% return on your money instantly. If your company matches 50% of contributions up to 6% of salary, and you contribute $6,000, they give you $3,000 for free. That's a 50% instant return. Where else can you get a guaranteed 50% return? Nowhere. And some companies match dollar for dollar up to 6 or even 8%. That's a 100% guaranteed return. Let me show you the actual cost of this mistake. Let's say you're 55 years old, earning $75,000 per year. Your company matches dollar for dollar up to 6%. If you only contribute 3% instead of 6%, you're leaving $2,250 per year on the table. That's the company match you're not getting. Over 10 years until retirement at 65, that's $22,500 you didn't receive. But it's actually much worse than that because of compound growth. With reasonable investment returns, that missed match could have grown to $35,000 or $40,000 by retirement. And for someone over 50, this mistake is particularly deadly because you don't have decades to make it up. Every year you fail to maximize the match is a permanent loss. If you're 55 and you finally start maximizing at 60, you've permanently lost 5 years of free money and compound growth. That could easily represent $50,000 to $75,000 you'll never recover. The second mistake is staying invested in high-fee funds or choosing completely inappropriate investments within your 401k. This one destroys more wealth than almost anything else, and most people don't even realize it's happening because the fees are hidden and the damage accumulates slowly. Here's how people fall into this trap. They enroll in their 401k, they look at the investment options, they see 20 or 30 different funds with complicated names, they don't understand any of it, so they either pick whatever sounds good or they just stay in whatever the plan defaulted them into. They figure all the funds in the plan must be professionally selected and appropriate. They assume the fees must be reasonable. Both assumptions are completely wrong. The reality is that many 401k plans are loaded with high-fee funds. I'm talking about funds charging 1 to 2% per year in expense ratios, and many people don't even know what an expense ratio is. It's the annual fee you pay to own the fund, taken as a percentage of your investment. 1% might not sound like much, but over decades it's absolutely devastating. Let me show you the math. You have $200,000 in your 401k at age 55. You're invested in funds averaging 1.5% in fees. Over 10 years with 7% gross returns, you'll have about $370,000 at 65. Now let's say instead you were in low-cost index funds charging 0.1%. With the same 7% gross returns, you'd have about $410,000 at 65. The high fees cost you $40,000. That's $40,000 you'll never get back. gone forever to fund managers and administrators. And it gets worse if you look at longer time horizons. If you're 50 with 300,000 and you stay in high fee funds for 15 years, the difference could be $80,000 to $100,000 compared to low-cost alternatives. You're literally giving away a year or two of retirement income to Wall Street for no good reason. But the problem isn't just fees. It's also about inappropriate investment choices. I see people in their 50s with their entire 401k in their company stock. That's catastrophic risk. If the company fails, you lose your job and your retirement simultaneously. I see people with everything in money market funds earning almost nothing, guaranteeing they'll lose to inflation. I see people in target date funds that are way too conservative for their age or way too aggressive. For someone over 50, this mistake is particularly deadly because you're in the final accumulation phase before retirement. These are the years when your balance should be growing most rapidly because you're contributing more and compound growth is at its peak. If high fees and poor fund choices are eating 3 or 4% of your returns annually during these critical years, you're destroying your retirement before it even starts. The third mistake, and this one makes me absolutely furious because it's so destructive, is taking early withdrawals or loans from your 401k. People convince themselves they have good reasons. They tell themselves it's their money, so they should be able to use it. But every single time someone does this, they're committing financial suicide. Here's how people justify this mistake. They say, I have an emergency and I need the cash. Or they say, I'm just borrowing from myself, I'll pay it back. Or they say the penalty isn't that bad, it's only 10%. Every single one of these justifications ignores the catastrophic true cost. Let's start with early withdrawals. If you take money out of your 401k before age 59 and a half, you pay a 10% penalty plus income taxes. So if you withdraw $50,000 and you're in the 22% tax bracket, you pay $5,000 in penalties and $11,000 in taxes. You only get $34,000 in cash. You gave up $16,000, nearly a third of your money, just to access your own savings early. But the real cost is much worse because you've permanently lost that money's future growth. That $50,000 you withdrew might have grown to $120,000 or more by the time you actually retire. So the true cost of your early withdrawal isn't $16,000. It's potentially $70,000 or $80,000 in lost future wealth. Now let's talk about 401k loans. These sound safer because you're borrowing from yourself and paying yourself back with interest, but they're still incredibly dangerous. First, if you leave your job or get fired, the entire loan becomes due immediately, usually within 60 days. If you can't pay it back, it becomes a withdrawal with all the penalties and taxes I just described. Second, while the loan is outstanding, that money isn't invested and growing. You're losing compound returns. Third, you're paying back the loan with after-tax dollars, even though the original contribution was pre-tax. You're essentially paying taxes twice on that money. I've seen this scenario dozens of times. Someone at 55 has $400,000 in their 401k. They take a $50,000 loan for a home repair or to help a kid with college. They fully intend to pay it back over 5 years. Then at 57, they get laid off. Suddenly, the $50,000 loan becomes due immediately. They can't pay it, so it converts to a withdrawal. They lose $16,000 to taxes and penalties. They permanently lose the compound growth on that $50,000. And they're now 2 years from retirement with $350,000 instead of the $450,000 they should have had. That $100,000 difference will haunt them for the rest of their lives. For people over 50, this mistake is particularly deadly because this is exactly when cash flow gets tight. Maybe your kids are in college. Maybe you're helping aging parents. Maybe you have a medical emergency. The temptation to tap your 401k is strongest in your 50s, but doing so permanently damages your retirement at the exact moment when you have no time to recover. The fourth mistake is leaving old 401k accounts scattered at previous employers or mishandling rollovers when you change jobs. This seems like a minor administrative issue, but it can cost you tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. Here's how this happens. You work at a company for 5 or 10 years. You build up maybe 80 or 100,000 in the 401k, then you change jobs. Your new employer has a different 401k plan. What do you do with the old one? Most people do one of three things, and all three are terrible. Option one, they just leave it where it is. They figure it's invested and growing, no need to do anything. But here's the problem. That old 401k is probably charging high fees. The plan administrator has no incentive to keep fees low for former employees. You're no longer getting the benefit of your former employer's oversight or negotiating power on fees, and you're not actively managing it because you've mentally moved on. That account could be sitting in inappropriate investments for years while fees slowly eat it alive. Option two, they cash it out. This is financial murder. They take the balance as cash, pay massive taxes and penalties, and blow the money on a car or vacation or paying off debt. I've seen people in their 50s cash out $200,000 401k accounts when changing jobs. After taxes and penalties, they get maybe $130,000. They've just burned $70,000 and destroyed their retirement. Option three, they attempt a rollover to an IRA but do it wrong. They have the check made out to themselves instead of doing a direct trustee-to-trustee transfer. This triggers a mandatory 20% withholding. Then they have 60 days to deposit the full amount, including that 20% that was withheld, into a new retirement account. If they don't replace that withheld 20% with their own money within 60 days, it becomes a taxable distribution and they owe penalties. Let me give you a real example. Someone has $300,000 in an old 401k. They request a check to roll it over. The administrator withholds 20%, $60,000, and sends them a check for $240,000. They now have 60 days to deposit the full $300,000 into a new IRA. But they don't have $60,000 in cash lying around, so they can only roll over the $240,000. That $60,000 that was withheld becomes a distribution. They owe taxes on it, plus a 10% penalty if they're under 59 and a half. Suddenly, a simple rollover mistake cost them $25,000 or $30,000. For people over 50, this mistake is particularly expensive because by this age, you've typically accumulated multiple 401k accounts from different employers over your career. You might have 3 or 4 different accounts scattered around with a total value of $500,000 or more. If each one is charging high fees, if you're not actively managing them, if you screw up the consolidation process, you could easily lose $50,000 to $100,000 between now and retirement through fees, penalties, and lost growth. The fifth mistake, and this one destroys more retirements than almost anything else, is failing to adjust your asset allocation as you approach retirement and ignoring required minimum distributions after 70. These sound like technical details, but they can make the difference between a comfortable retirement and poverty. Let me start with asset allocation. Many people set their 401k investments in their 30s or 40s and then never look at them again. They figure long-term holding is the right strategy. Don't try to time the market. Just stay invested and let it grow. And while that general philosophy is correct, it completely ignores the fact that your risk tolerance and time horizon change dramatically as you age. If you're 65 and your 401k is still 90% stocks, because that's what you set it to when you were 35, you're exposed to catastrophic risk. If the market drops 30% right as you retire, you've lost $300,000 on a $1 million portfolio. And you don't have time to wait for recovery because you need to start taking distributions. You're forced to sell stocks at depressed prices, locking in losses. On the flip side, if you're 55 and you've shifted to 90% bonds and cash because you're scared of volatility, you're guaranteeing that inflation will destroy you. Over a 20 or 30-year retirement, you need growth assets. You need stocks to beat inflation. If you're too conservative too early, your purchasing power will be cut in half. The general rule is your stock allocation should roughly equal 110 minus your age. At 50, that's 60% stocks. At 60, 50% stocks. At 70, 40% stocks. This provides growth to beat inflation while gradually reducing risk as you approach and enter retirement. But most people are either way too aggressive or way too conservative for their age. Now let's talk about required minimum distributions, known as RMDs. Starting at age 73, the IRS forces you to withdraw a certain percentage of your 401k every year. If you don't take these withdrawals, you face a penalty of 25% of the amount you should have withdrawn. That's not a typo, 25% penalty. But here's what most people don't realize. RMDs can push you into much higher tax brackets and trigger taxation of your Social Security benefits. Let's say you retire at 65 with $1 million in your 401k. You're living on Social Security and some savings. Your taxes are low. Everything seems fine. Then at 73, you're forced to start taking RMDs. On a $1 million balance, your first RMD is about $40,000. That's $40,000 of taxable income you're forced to recognize whether you need the money or not. Suddenly, your total income is high enough that 85% of your Social Security becomes taxable. You're pushed into a higher tax bracket. You might even face Medicare premium surcharges. What was a low-tax retirement at 70 suddenly becomes a high-tax nightmare at 73, all because you didn't plan for RMDs. For people over 50, these mistakes are particularly deadly because 50 to 70 is your last window to get this right. If you're 65 with too aggressive an allocation and the market crashes, you're finished. If you're 55 and too conservative, you've locked in 15 years of inadequate growth before RMDs start. If you don't have a strategy for managing RMDs before they start, you'll get crushed by taxes you could have avoided. So what should you actually do? How do you avoid these 5 catastrophic mistakes and actually protect your 401k for a comfortable retirement? Let me give you a clear action plan. First, maximize your contributions to get every penny of employer match every single year. If your company matches up to 6%, contribute at least 6% no matter what. Treat this like a non-negotiable bill, like rent or mortgage. If you're over 50, you can contribute an additional $7,500 per year in catch-up contributions on top of the regular limit. Use it. Maximize it. This is your last chance to build wealth. Second, immediately review your fund choices and move everything to low-cost index funds. Look at the expense ratios. Anything over 0.5% is too high. Anything over 1% is robbery. Most plans offer at least one S&P 500 index fund or total stock market fund with expense ratios under 0.2%. Move your money there. The difference in fees over 10 or 15 years could easily be $50,000 to $100,000 in your pocket instead of Wall Street's pocket. Third, never ever take early withdrawals or loans from your 401k except in absolute dire emergencies. And by dire emergency, I mean you're literally about to be homeless or you can't afford life-saving medical treatment, not paying for a wedding, not buying a car, not taking a vacation. Build a separate emergency fund in a regular savings account for those needs. Your 401k should be completely untouchable until retirement. Fourth, when you change jobs, immediately roll your old 401k into a low-fee IRA with a company like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. Do a direct trustee-to-trustee transfer where the money never touches your hands. This avoids all withholding and penalty issues. Consolidate all your old 401k accounts into one IRA where you can manage them properly with low fees. This one action could save you tens of thousands in fees over the next 10 or 15 years. Fifth, adjust your allocation to match your age and create a plan for RMDs. Use the rule of 110 minus your age for stock allocation. If you're 55, target 55% stocks, 45% bonds. Rebalance annually. And starting at 65, talk to a tax professional about Roth conversions. By converting traditional 401k money to Roth IRA before RMDs start, you can reduce your future RMD amounts and minimize taxes. This requires paying taxes now on the conversion, but it can save you far more in taxes later. The key principles are simple: maximize contributions and match, minimize fees, never touch the money early, consolidate old accounts, adjust allocation as you age, plan for RMDs. You don't need genius-level financial knowledge. You just need to avoid stupid mistakes. These 5 401k mistakes are destroying retirements for millions of Americans right now. Not maximizing employer match, staying in high-fee funds, taking early withdrawals or loans, mishandling old accounts and rollovers, failing to rebalance and ignoring RMDs. Every single one of these mistakes is completely avoidable, but every single one can cost you $50,000, $100,000, or even more. And the tragedy is that many people making these mistakes have substantial 401k balances. They're not starting from zero. They've saved diligently for decades. They've built up real wealth. But through ignorance or bad advice or simple inaction, they're destroying that wealth before they even retire. Your 70-year-old self is watching you right now. That person is desperately hoping you'll check your 401k, fix these mistakes, and protect the retirement you've worked so hard to build. Don't let easily avoidable errors steal your financial security. If this video opened your eyes to the reality of 401k mistakes, take action immediately. Smash that like button to help more people with 401k accounts avoid these traps. Share this with every coworker, friend, and family member over 50 who has a 401k. They need to see this before it's too late. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell because I'm going to keep exposing the truth about retirement money and 401k secrets that administrators and employers don't want you to know. Leave a comment and tell me which of these mistakes you've made or which one worries you most. Or tell me your 401k balance and what you're most concerned about. Let's help each other navigate this complex system. Your retirement savings deserve better treatment than they're getting. Start by logging into your 401k account today and checking for these 5 mistakes. Make the changes now. Your future depends on it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.